Coach Caruso, welcome to the Basketball Podcast.
Appreciate it. Great being on with you today and look forward to it.
Where do we even begin, Coach? What a career. Incredible. But I want to start with something that I think truly stands out. Is it 16-4 record in championship games? That's pretty damn good.
Well, yeah, we've been pretty fortunate to get there a number of times and then have success. And real credit to our student athletes, assistant coaches preparing us for the games. And it's interesting when you look back at it and the opportunities that we've had and a couple that we haven't won were ones I think we could have, and a couple that we did win, we probably got fortunate in. Winning championships takes a lot of things to come together, and we've been fortunate to have that happen at times for us.
So talk to us a little bit about, in general, kind of the philosophy. I'm sure it's evolved over the years you've been there and the success that you've had, but to talk to us maybe about most recently, what are some of the keys that have led to you sustaining success at your program?
Yeah, I think I took a head job at 28 years old and had the fortunate to be assistant coach under my mentor, Bruce McGregor. Played for 4 years and was his assistant state raider at Husson. But really the background, the knowledge I gained from those experiences, because I was basically a full-time assistant coach. Now, I wasn't getting paid as a full-time assistant coach, but the hours were there. And he gave me a lot of opportunity to learn and grow. By the time that Coach McGregor retired, he had 545 wins, 550 wins, whatever that number was. And he had the most wins in New England and in any division. So, he had established a lot of success in the program. So I feel like I'm really fortunate at 28 years old to be ready for the opportunity. Didn't know we'd win 5, 6 championships in the first 8 years, but certainly really fortunate. If you ask my players back then, they'd say back then I was out of my mind. And today they tell you that I've mellowed. I think I just have a different perspective today. The one thing I'd say really involved for us is, it was about 14 years ago, we were at the Final Four and we heard and I don't remember his name. He was a retired Navy SEAL. He had talked about core values and standards and how important they were with the Navy SEALs and the Marines and all those things and organizations. There's something we took back with us that we implemented the following year and kind of evolved to now we have 5 core principles that really drive us: passion, discipline, gratitude, trust, and passion. And for us, it's been really a driving principle now for certainly the last 10 years. We've really evolved in this mindset that's driven our recruiting, it's driven our accountability. We talk about recruiting like-minded individuals to these core values, and we present them in the recruiting process, and we haven't scared anyone away, but I'm sure it's probably factored in some decision-making for us. For us, we think it's really helped our program even more so today, maybe early on in my coaching career.
You've mentioned this to me, but 95% of your possessions, you figure, were man-to-man over the 3 decades. That means you know what you know and you love what you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I said this to you. I'm a little old school. Playing legal ball a little bit, but I really believe in the man-to-man concept. And I think it's a staple of our program. We look back at the years we've had success. We often measure success in our non-conference opportunities, and that sets the stage for us to be in a position to win championships. But it's those best defensive teams that we've had that generally put themselves in a position at the end of the year to be a championship caliber team. We like to get after it, and from that we get to transition, which from the offensive end of the floor, we like to play and transition as often as we can and play with pace. And so it's really our defense sets the stage for us in how we want to play and what we want.
What are some of the tenets of that defensive philosophy in terms of how you're covering the ball, where you're influencing the ball, the different things that you're doing off the ball? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. We really try to recruit to those individual student athletes that can pressure the ball. Our pickup point is, it used to be just over the 3-point line. We're actually going to make some adjustments and extend that to full court this year because the personnel really dictates that. And the way the game is being played, that full court opportunity is something that we really want to take advantage of, to maximize the speed of the what we think benefits us. And then, kind of a standard gap principles. One thing that we talk about game to game sometimes is what you do on the strong side. You keep that gap or you take away the shooter. And we tend to take away the shooter and rotate from the backside. on that gap principle, which is not a pure gap. It's kind of a combination of the old rules and a little bit of gap play. We certainly want to keep people out of the paint. And then we force middle, through gap principle, so to speak, to force middle and keep that ball out of the paint and on the 3-point line, and then contest the best way we can. So we're a little vanilla in a way, but we keep things simple. Various ball screen coverages put us in different aspects of things too. We like to double the ball out of ball screens. We'll play drop, and then we switch as much as our lineup allows us to keep things in front.
Well, vanilla is great, coach, especially when you're winning as much as you are. So, and I imagine again, just simple and clarity and those things that go along with that as well. So, talk to us kind of like in this depth of a career as well. I'm sure you've messed around with other things, but to stay that convicted in that way means that when you've messed around with other things or investigated other things, they just haven't aligned with you. Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Sure. I think we started on the defensive end floor because we used to be a pressure deny kind of team. Gap principles came about been around for a long time, but came into vogue 12 to 15 years ago. We were a little late getting to that. I think that's an evolution for us. And now we've kind of meshed that to our personnel and to our scout a little bit. But so that certainly was an evolution. Offensively, I think we've transformed over the years in what we do in our half-court mindset. There was a time when we might have been a team that had 20 plus sets, and we don't have that today. We ride a lot of motion principles, dribble drive type of idea with the personnel that we have, and shoot a lot of threes and try to finish at the rim. All the matrix say you're supposed to, but we're still okay with a mid-range jump shot if we've got some guys that are really good in that setting. So I think it's a process that you're comfortable with. But what's really, to me, has evolved is the student athlete. The student athlete trains at a much higher level individually. Almost every one of our guys has a trainer at home that they work with. So we've adjusted some of our philosophies to that in our practice scheduling and those type of things. One thing that we find is because they work so much 1-on-0, they don't have the same reads knowledge that maybe old school basketball guys would have. And so we find ourselves teaching those more and breaking that stuff down even further than maybe 15 years ago. So that's probably one of the biggest evolutions is the student athlete is much better skilled on an individual basis, and then learn to play within a 5-1-5 concept is, I think, something that we see that we're constantly building on, trying to get a better understanding for our guys.
Well, I want to go deeper on that one, coach, because I keep sharing that with everyone. And one of the main reasons, like people hold on to things from the past because it worked for them, a little bit of survivorship bias, all that different stuff. But you kind of nailed it. It's not that it was wrong. It's just that kids are different and they've learned differently than the way we did 30 years ago, 20 years ago. So you hit that on the head in terms of now I got to adjust what they need from my practices, especially a team practice setting.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we would say is we recognize all people learn different ways. So we do film work before every day from the practice before talking about whether it be reads or coverages. We do more breakdown in small groups off screen reads and those type of things than we have. Again, this goes 10, 15 years back, but we're doing a lot more of that than we would have previously because student athletes just knew how to play. In today's world, it's you can go pros and cons, but I don't think AAU teaches student athletes how to play the game. They play a lot of games, but not necessarily the reads and the understanding of 5-on-5 basketball in a more complex setting. And so, again, I think we continue to evolve and try to keep up with where we think our students are at and try to give them what they need for them to be successful individually. And we know individual success leads to team success and buy-in.
So take us deeper in terms of the film. You say daily film. It's a cornerstone of your preparation, obviously, preparing your players for all possibilities. So talk about the specific way that you do that. Is it individual? Is it a group? How are you approaching it?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you we have time for the individual stuff, but as a Division III coach and part-time assistants, that's hard for us. But we spend about 20 minutes before every practice going over the previous day's practice. Surely when we get into games, we'll cover the game, our opponent as well. And we really try to break down the situations where we're noticing weaknesses. A lot of times it's defensive coverage, rotations, some footwork things, the shot selections, the reads off, whether it be split action or ball screen action, two things that we do a fair amount. but just trying to show them visually. And then, so then when we take it on the floor and we're in the practice of that day, and then something comes up, we can refer back to the film session that we showed this to you on film. This is still happening, and this is why. And we think it leads to good teaching opportunities. We always try to, particularly early in the season, try to slow practice down a little bit, and we'll really spend, we generally don't spend more than 10 minutes on any one thing. Our practices are very rhythmic, so to speak, with pace, which is how we want to play. But usually once a week, a lot of times on our Sunday practice, then we'll slow things down and really break things down for them and work up to 5-on-0 to 5-on-5. Sometimes it's even 4-on-0 and 4, just trying to get some of the action and understanding down. And the same thing on the defensive end of the floor. And so again, trying to give our student athletes opportunities to learn in different ways so they're comfortable. And we often talk to them, what's the best way to see it? We actually have a video library with all of our sets in it so they can visualize it on video anytime they want on their phone. And then we try to put some clips in there of different things that we think we're deficient in so they can see them and they kind of get used to where they're missing out. So that does individualize it a little bit in our app that we use for the team.
So you mentioned a few things there that I want to go deeper on. Maybe help us understand a little bit more about that Sunday practice, because I think that's such an important concept there. To a certain extent, coaches are, and I'm sure you and me, I know early in our careers, we had a hard time sacrificing intensity for learning. And that's essentially what you're saying there, is that you're taking a practice that the focus is on learning, and we understand that intensity won't be as high.
Yeah, it's something that needs communication with our student athletes. We kind of prepare them. I mean, tomorrow, this is what we're going to do. It doesn't mean we don't want to be shot, you don't want to be crisp, but it's not going to be high intensity. We want you to learn and understand some of the things we have. So particularly early in the season, with the 8 practices that we've done it twice. And to some extent, where we've just slowed things down and said, hey, this is what we're not getting. These are the movements we need. Again, on both sides of the ball sometimes, usually more offensively than defensively. And I think it's just an important component today to get our guys comfortable. One of our core principles is that trust. And the trust starts with knowing what you're doing. And we've got to give our student athletes every opportunity to know what they're doing. As we tell them, we can't put you on the floor if you don't know what you're doing, no matter how good you think you are. If you're not in sync with the other 4 guys on the floor, we're going to have breakdowns. And at the college level, you just can't afford these and win games. So again, it goes to a philosophy of caring about our student athletes 1 through 18. We got 18 guys on the roster. We give them all the same amount of reps and the same opportunities, because we know if our last group is strong enough, they're going to make the first and second group that much better. And I think that's our depth is one thing. If you talk to our conference opponents and even some of our in-state opponents, they talked about our depth. And we lost 2 guys that would have been starters for us last year. We talked about winning 20 games and win a conference championship. I think that speaks to our program that we have. And so trying to develop those guys, not only for this year of practice theory, but also they're our future rotation guys that are going to come up to the program.
Love it. And you already outlined a little bit your core values: positive discipline, gratitude, trust, and passion. And then obviously on a broader scale, this theory of yours is obviously excellence in everything you do, and the theme chop wood. So share that with us a little bit, that's kind of shaping your program over the last few years.
Yeah, we've always asked our students to be as good as they can be at anything. And saying those, if they're going to be a street league, they'll be the best street that they can be. And so trying to instill those values, because that's a valuable lesson in life, right? No one starts out as a VP, head coach, whatever you want to put it in. You got to earn your stripes. And the way you earn those stripes and move along is to be the best that you can be. And so it's really relevant in life. And then again, if you're a freshman coming in and you're playing behind some upperclassmen, you've got to be good every day in practice so that we build that trust and know that you're part of our future. One of the things that we talk about, small acts of discipline, you stack them all up, and then you become a more disciplined person. So they get tired of me talking about making their bed. Did you make your bed this morning? Is it that first act of the day, right? Did you brush your teeth? Did you take a shower? Eat breakfast? Because you start your day off right, and often things fall in place. But it goes to how you work out. So are you in there working out, and can you be getting 200 shots instead of 120 shots because of your discipline and how hard you work and the excellence that you have? So we're always trying to talk about that. We've generally had a slogan for us each year, like 2 years ago, we asked our athletes what they wanted, and one of them suggested chop wood, and because it's a well-known book that's been written in a couple different ways, and we got a copy for everyone to read, and our guys have really bought into it. So we carried that over into this year, and so we're saying this year is keep chopping wood in that mindset that it's all about the process. Prepare for tomorrow, what you do today, and so it all blended into all the things that we're talking about. We probably will carry it forward for a couple more years because our student athletes have really bought into it. And I think one of those things that you can look to is we had all 13 guys that were eligible to return to us return. So we had 100% retention from a year ago. And I think that really speaks to the culture of the program and the mindset that we have, and that there's a buy-in there that if I do these things, in the end, I'm going to get an opportunity, even though this year I might not. I'm in the process of helping the team. What my role is today is not who I am. It's just what I'm being asked to do today. And we got some guys that really bought into that, and two guys that started for us in the last 2 years, or certainly the other one was our 6th and 7th man last year, didn't play their first 2 years. So now they've set the example for the other guys to come in and say, put your time in, work hard, the opportunity will come. And along the way, you're helping build a culture that contends for championships and, been pretty competitive at the national tournament.
So I love this phrasing, and it's absolutely true. As a coach, we're generally happy 33% of the time. I'm not sure that specific number, but it does gives us like perspective on it, and it's absolutely true. So talk to us about working hard at keeping things positive.
Yeah, my wife will tell you that I'm not half empty or half full. I'm generally full all the time. I'm Jared McGuire. Every day is a great day. Every day is an opportunity. And so our guys hear that all the time. So even though the 33% of the time, 67% of the time, you win X number of games, you're really pleased with. You lose a game or two, and then you go like, hey, we played pretty well, but the team was better. But most of the time, you're upset with something that you did or didn't do. But we always try to go back. I caught this phrase somewhere along the way. Lessons and blessings. Everything has an opportunity to be something that you can make positive. And we want our guys to feel that way. We 1-2 times a year, I'm going to walk in the locker room and take responsibility for what took place. In order for them to take responsibility, they have to hear from me as the leader and their head coach. And we want them to understand that looking inward makes a difference. You got to start with what you're doing. And if I'm going to ask more of myself and more of you, then you're going to be willing to do the same thing. So really trying to keep things on the positive side of things. I think it really helps us in critical situations. One of the things that I'm really proud of our groups over the years that we responded really well after a loss or even a run on the court. And mostly because looking at the next thing. And so it's just something I've carried with myself a long time. My son wrote me this beautiful letter after my induction maybe a couple of weeks ago. And he just talked about how critical it's been for him in his life to have that faith-oriented mindset of everything's going to be okay. And we talked about relationships because that's what this business is about. And we get to play the game of basketball, but the other day, coaching, educating is about relationships that we want to last a lifetime. And so when it's about relationships and the process of just doing the best we can, win or lose, we're still okay. We're still okay. And so that's just something that we preach, we talk about, we integrate into our program. That doesn't mean we don't raise our voice and we don't get after it once in a while, which we do, but it's done in the purpose of progression.
I love that. I love hearing that. And we're going to talk more about your induction into the Hall of Fame later. But another thing that I thought was really cool, and I'd love coaches to hear more about this, is that you end practice with giving players the opportunity to share their thoughts on the practice. Can you talk to us about, first of all, maybe how that happens, and then why you do it, and then maybe some of the insights that come out of that?
So we started this half a dozen years ago, maybe a little bit more, but with the Job and Wood slogan, we found an old axe handle that we give out every day after the end of practice. But we gather at midcourt in a circle, open the opportunity for our guys to talk about practice. And you really learn a lot there because you learn some insight. You learn who's willing to speak up. Sometimes we call on someone who hasn't spoken up yet to kind of get their thoughts and make sure they know it's okay to share them. And sometimes there's some real honesty there that cuts through some things that we need to cut through. But we really believe in giving our guys a forum to talk about where things are at. And this gives it to us on an everyday basis. A little further, the practice player of the day, names the next day's practice player of the day. As part of this whole concept, one of our assistant coaches has a quote for us every day for the guys to kind of finish practice on. And I really think this has helped us with guys that can express frustration, can also express the great practice we've had. But it can, our upperclassmen often talk about what's next. We got a game to watch, and these are the things that are important. So that's one of those small things that has really helped us take a step in coming together and building trust, because everyone, for the most part, everyone feels they can say what they feel and no one's going to judge it. And so it's one of those steps in the process, I think.
Small groups, big groups. Have you tried everything?
Well, then, so in the practice, it's all of us. We try to keep everything in the same group. I'm a real believer that we're all together better, so to speak, that if we're all having the same conversation, hearing it from the same person at the same time, it goes a long way. We have individual meetings, obviously, to shape roles and help development. But usually with the team aspect, it's all together. Again, we don't want to regurgitate someone else's words. We want our guys, the teammates, to hear from each other live.
So I guess the question with that then, how do you create that group psychological safety for this individual to be able to speak and actually add value, whether it's good or bad or whatever?
Yeah, I think essentially the upperclassmen who've come up through it and really trust the program and the culture that we have, passing that on down to the guys, both peer to peer, whether it be at lunch. There's 5 and 6 of them at lunch talking, about it. But you can see it, right? Because when one of our guys say, "Hey, practice today really wasn't up to standard. We've got to do these things better," and there's no repercussions. There's no one's criticizing. Now, someone might disagree, and those are the best times to have when a couple upperclassmen or even a couple teammates are talking practice through. And the more conversation, the better, because we think it sets the stage for coming back tomorrow in a better frame of mind, good, bad, or indifferent. So I think it's really just a part of our locker room, our community as a program. That trust is there to feel like they can express themselves and that there's no repercussions, that no one's going to hold it against them. And it's something that I think we promote and encourage.
I love this idea. And I've done it in small groups and then bring it to the big group, but same challenges and same successes. I have no doubt about it. So the other part that goes with that is what happens? You get some feedback. How do you turn it into actionable things that they know that their feedback impacted? Because I imagine that's one of the most important parts of this, is that they know you're authentically taking it in. And in some cases, it's causing actions for you.
Yeah. And look, I've always been someone that's been open. I'm the best thief in the world when it comes to the basketball world. Watch basketball all the time and pick up things that we like and try to integrate with the program. And we do that with our student athletes. I go back to the chopping wood slogan came from our athlete. And he's the one that sold us on it. And I wasn't initially sold on it. And he and I had an individual conversation. I go, okay, no, this is what we want. There's situations where, a student athlete will come to me and say, "Coach, I think this is a problem." And it might be a student athlete that isn't doing well in the locker room or whatever. It might be philosophically offense and defense. I go back last year, the national tournament game, coming off the court at halftime, and Charlie Casabicas, who's the coach's son, he's got to be a coach someday. He's going to be a good one. I said, "Coach, I think we should try this." And so we went at halftime, and I drew it up, and I said, "This is what we're going to do to start the half." And we ran it twice and scored once and got fouled. And I just think it goes a long way when there's a lot of views, there's a lot of highs, and if we're not taking advantage of it, and we're not communicating it, then I think we're making a mistake as a coach. So we try to turn things into action when they make sense. At the same token, there'll be times like right now that won't work for us. Today's not the time. I appreciate what you're saying. And when the time is right, maybe we can approach that, but the brief's not ready. We're in a different place right now. And so again, that open communication, that honest communication, that authentic feeling of yes and no, it's okay. Either way, I think really builds the culture that we have up and down the line.
Well, the reason I'm staying here a little bit is I don't think I've ever gone in depth on this in a podcast, this type, because I think often we hear we want to empower players from coaches, but this is an example of what it actually looks like, empowering players to feel like it's their program as much as your program. And again, through these years, I have no doubt that we've all transitioned in terms of our coaching from more transactional to transformational. And this is a huge part of it. So That example in a important game is one of them, but to maybe help us understand a little bit more some of the different ways within your program that players feel empowered.
Yeah, I think what would come to mind, instinctively first is their desire to be together and coming to us and like, how can we spend more time together? Because at the Division III level, we're handcuffed a little, particularly in the early part of the season until we get to October 15th. But we empower our guys to come up with something, and within what we can do, we try to make that work. We, in the past, we haven't done it lately, but in the past, we've lined upperclassmen up with our new student athletes to try to get them to transform that culture. And I would say probably the best example that we have is we talk about it all the time. Our best recruiters are our pro student athletes, and empowering them to host somebody. And you finalize the deal. We've done all the work to get them here. It's your job to finalize the deal. And we have such a mindset of wanting the next good player to come in to keep what we have going. There's never like, oh my God, he might take my spot. And so I think that's a sense of empowerment there, and that they trust what we're doing. And so whatever they bring to us, we're going to look at it in a positive setting of trying to come up with it. And so I think it's a little organic for us in that sense of how it evolves. But I think that's also the best way for it to happen, rather than us saying, hey, this is what you're going to do. It's often them coming to us and say, hey, coach, what about this? We trust our guys a lot. We have in our lap the opportunity to give feedback on how their body feels, their sleep habits, their eating, and then their just general mindset. There's 3 categories, and we get those reports every couple of days. But we're empowering them to tell us how we feel so that we can adjust practice. We're going to listen to those, and we tell the guys, we look at this is important. And so when a couple of guys might be fatigued and stressed, we follow up with them. And that's runs through the locker room, and everyone comes up around on how their body feels, then we're going to change practice. And we're going to tell them why we change practice. So those are some examples, albeit somewhat small, but I think collectively it all goes to that sense of trust and like, I have a say in this. I'm important, because we all want to feel valued.
I love that. I love the depth of this and the understanding of this. So appreciate you sharing this. And I know another thing, we mentioned the championship success and the playoff success, and every coach wants that. But one thing getting there, and it's another thing winning once you're there. So I know you've talked about it, scaling back practice as the season goes on. You were doing load management before load management was cool, coach. So talk to us a little bit about that thought process and then how you actually action that.
Yeah, it was something we've done for a long time, and we had a strength coach that's worked with us now for 12 years. He's a former player, and he and I spent a lot of time talking about this. And so we get to mid-January, once school starts in the second semester, we try not to be on the floor anymore. A lot of times it's 75, and incorporating that 20 minutes of film work, a couple of days a week we're in the weight room, or in the weight room we may only be on the floor for an hour or so. We feel like by the time we get to mid to late January, we're still working, we're still trying to get timing, rotation, whatever. But by then it's kind of solidified. So our time on the floor doesn't have to be as much as 2 hours is a negative return on investment in that release. Further that, we recognize that our guys are in the gym on their own. So when you come down and work out in the morning on your own or in small groups, and we do some small group works, and you put in 45 minutes, you go to class, come back. Do we really want to be on the floor 2 more hours at that time of year? One of the things that we think really has aided us is how fresh we are. We know if we're fresh in February, we're ready for the stretch run. One thing we started 3 years ago now is we play a lot of Friday, Saturday back-to-backs because of our conference. So we either started taking Thursday off, or we'd go early in the morning, Thursday, shoot, do the scout, and have all day Thursday off, all day Friday off, and we'd play Friday night, Saturday afternoon. And we found our guys responded to that really well. So we're not afraid to tinker with the schedule. Look, there's no one going back where I started probably until the early 2000s. No one utilized 2 hours of practice more than I did. And really just it was a mistake and something that we evolved in. And then the strength coach who we've had, Will Taylor, he and I spent a lot of time talking about it. Research came out of when Doc Rivers was with the Celtics and they started talking about the value of time off and that mental and physical freshness. But it really resonated with us, something we started integrating. And I think our guys really appreciate the looks that we have. And we monitor our guys working out on their own too. You're not doing us any good if we're going to help keep you fresh. If you're going to go at 90 minutes on your own on a day off, the day off was by design. And so we know that helps them academically, helps them socially. And at the end of the day, if they're clicking on all three cylinders, academically, socially, and athletically, then we're going to be playing our best baseball.
We've mentioned obviously the length of time that you've coached from being an assistant to being a head coach at the same school. Can you talk to us about some of the challenges of that and then obviously some of the benefits of that? Maybe a unique thing as we think going forward in coaching, but an incredible thing nevertheless.
Yeah, I want to expand on this a little bit too, because Coach McGregor, who was Coach fire to me, he was 26 years. And so at Husson, there have been two coaches in the last 58 years, and between the two of us, we're 1,150 wins, whatever it is. I think there's only been two losing seasons in those 58 years as well. So it's a really unique situation. We've done a little bit of research. We haven't found any other university at any level, male or female, that has had that longevity with just two coaches in the level of success that we've had. So certainly when you're at the same institution for a long time, there's a lot more pros than cons, but tongue in cheek, I'm like the bad penny that keeps showing up on campus. Just fortunate it's heads up, I guess. But look, I love my run here, reflecting this summer a little bit because of the award that I received. I really think everything in my life pointed me here, pointed me to coaching. I ran a restaurant for 29 years, gave me a background in customer service, managing people. 17 years old, I was in charge, really laid the groundwork for our leadership, so to speak, which is so valuable in coaching. You talk about stress. I joke about it, but there's nothing more stressful than a Friday night in a restaurant. 30 seconds left in the game, you're going to call a play, hope they execute it, but you got to get 40 orders out the window in a short period of time and people are hungry. That's stress. So you look at that and look, we all have a story and a background, and my background and story wasn't perfect. Athletics kept me going in the right direction. And any point in time that I might have changed directions in my career, everything came back to basketball. Everything came back to coaching here. And so I'm really where I belong, I think, based on my life's experiences and the direction that I've had. And been through three presidents, and they've all supported athletics, 6 to 8 ADs, and they're all been pluses and minuses sometimes on the AD front, but we're always fighting for what we want. But had tremendous support, great assistant coaches, and I look back at it and really, I've lived a blessed life to be able to coach in a place that I love. And my wife's a huge part of it. Both sons have been a part of it in one way or the other. The youngest one's coming back to coach after graduating 2 years ago. It's who we are. It's part of our lives. And it's really special, really, really.
I love that. And one of the benefits is no doubt that you're connected to your alumni. And so talk to us about maybe some of the things that you do to nurture and keep that relationship with your alumni, because we know how important they are, especially at the smaller college level. And I think so many people are in those situations where they want to just be able to have those better relationships.
There's something that Dave always worked hard at in the beginning of my coaching career. I talked about it all the time. Look, we're going to be a coach for 4 years, but we want this relationship to last a lifetime. We want to come to your weddings. And Nicole and I probably back 50 plus weddings over the years. I looked back at it was interesting, but we've had 100 guys play their last year of eligibility with us. So I think that's a good way to look at it in the Division III, because you bring some guys in that pay and may not be good enough and whatever. And graduation rates over 5 to 6 years were good, but 95 of those 100 student athletes have played their last year of eligibility with us. And I probably could go through the list and tell you what almost all 100 of them are, where they live and what they're doing, work hard at, texting out on holidays. So texting and social media has made it a lot easier to keep up with people before we have to pick up the phone and call. I rarely run into an alumni, wherever they may be in the country, that doesn't know how we did last year, or whether we beat St. Joe's or not, which is the rivalry that goes back into the 90s, early 2000s. So it's really a cultural thing that goes back 58 years. Like I know the graduates from the early 70s all the way up to the 80s, and I try to remind people, like, yeah, I wasn't here in the 70s. I didn't start until 84. but I know the history of the university. I know the history of the program. And so I've got relationships that span 7 decades.
Absolutely amazing. And again, incredible legacy, no doubt. And the number of people that you've influenced there, just beautiful. Coach, what would you be telling your younger self about coaching, about the profession, about the path that you chose? What would you be telling your younger self if you had a chance?
Well, I had to go back and tell my younger self one thing. I would say perspective. I think early on, it's a lot about winning and driving, and particularly the generation that I started coaching in the early 90s and early 2000s. I think that was the mindset of coaches. So I don't fault myself for being a driven individual, but I would certainly talk about perspective. And when I lecture, when I'm asked to speak at a coach's clinic or something, I talk about it all the time. We overvalue practice time. You practice in an hour and a half versus 2 hours isn't going to make a difference in winning and losing that next game. Collectively, maybe over the course of a season, yes, but it's okay. Step back, have them over for dinner, sit around and talk to them. Was it something we always did, but we did it with that driving mentality. And I think today we do it with a perspective of the process of getting ourselves to where we want to go and be the best version of ourselves on an everyday basis. Talk about it. They probably hear it from me every day. A life of gratitude is a life of joy. And when you can be grateful for whatever you have, and I remind our guys, look, only 6% of high school athletes play athletics. You're one of those 6%, whether you're on the floor or not, you're still doing something amazing. And when we keep that perspective, I think we can really find joy in our lives. And that's probably the things that I would talk to. I've always been a guy that always thought that things were going to be great and optimistic and we can do this and we can do that. But in the last 15 years, it's been more about perspective and that joy of having the opportunity to be around people that you care about and hopefully we're making a difference in their lives. Collectively, it leads to success.
Coach, so much good stuff throughout. I got to ask, you recently got inducted Maine Sports Hall of Fame. What was in the speech, Coach?
Yeah, going back to it, it was a lot of gratitude. Talking about the journey that has been. And one of the things I said is, how did I get here? That's how I started the speech. How did I get here? In the end, I think this is where I really belonged. And I had some people really special in my life. 3 coaches that really stand out. Coach McGregor's one of them. Gabby Price and Neil Waterman were coaches that influenced me through elementary school, junior high, and high school, and then both ended up working in Husson later. Really kept me on track in a childhood that single parent home with probably more freedom than I needed, but always handled it really well. But I had some guidance from coaches, and I think that's one of the reasons I gravitated to coaching. Certainly the support from tremendous student athletes who really, at the end of the day, this is my why. It's really special. But we've had great assistant coaches, mentioned it before, great support from the university in our basketball program. Coach Kissy Walker is the women's coach. We've been together for 30 plus years. And so really thanked her for the journey together. We've been through this as young coaches all the way up through the years. We've shared the wins and losses, daily conversations about life in our program, and the bus rides together has been really special. Been a special relationship for me, and I think for her as well. End of the day, my wife is such a big part of this. I mean, you can't a coaching wife is different than a 9 to 5 job. And she's embraced it from day one. She's on the bus. We have them over for dinner. She's fully in tune to all the players. And 3 years ago, she got the opportunity to come. She worked in the post office for 28 years, and she got the opportunity to come over and run the mailroom here. And so she took that job. So now she sees the guys on a regular basis, so it's even more connected. And my 2 sons just gave me a lot of purpose in life. Talking about perspective, that probably helped perspective when they came to my life. And that Nathan, the oldest one, worked with us for a couple of years while I was a physical therapy student here. And then the other one came back and played for us for 3 years and won a couple of championships. And then coming back to coach this year is just, it all ties into being a really incredible journey that I've been blessed and just have so much gratitude for. It wouldn't change a thing. And I think that's the end of the day. I'm right where I belong doing what I do.
Well, a great reflection of a beautiful coaching journey that is not done yet, Coach. And yeah, we cannot thank you enough for sharing the game with us and sharing your perspectives on lifetime in coaching, and just awesome to be able to hear it. So thank you for sharing.
Appreciate you having me on, Chris. It's been great.